What this plant did to my body surprised me so much that I never stopped using it. Have you ever stopped to think about why some people reach their 80s and 90s lucid, active, and independent, while others, at the same age, cannot remember what they had for breakfast? It is not just genetics. It is not just luck. There is a real biochemical difference between these two groups. And part of that difference lies in something so simple that most people dismiss it without even considering it. A common plant, cheap, accessible, that does things inside the brain and blood of an older adult that no expensive supplement can completely replicate. The first thing rosemary does in the body is dilate blood vessels. It contains bioactive compounds, and among them rosmarinic acid and cineol, that act directly on the vessel walls, relaxing the vascular smooth muscle and improving blood flow. For an older adult, this is not a minor detail. It is fundamental. With aging, blood vessels lose elasticity. Blood circulates with more difficulty. Tissues receive less oxygen and fewer nutrients. The heart works harder to compensate. This process is behind much of the chronic fatigue, elevated blood pressure, and heavy leg sensation that accompanies aging. Rosemary acts exactly at this point, not as a medication, but as daily biochemical support for a cardiovascular system that is under constant pressure. Tell me in the comments, which city are you watching this video from right now? I want to know where this audience that seeks real information about natural health is coming from. Write it down below while the video keeps going. Here is the most surprising finding. Rosemary increases cerebral blood flow, and this effect has direct consequences on memory, focus, and processing speed. A study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food evaluated the effect of exposure to rosemary aroma in older adults and found significant improvement in mental processing speed and working memory. It was not placebo. It was measured with standardized cognitive tests. The mechanism behind this involves the inhibition of acetylcholinesterase, the enzyme that degrades acetylcholine, the primary neurotransmitter linked to memory and learning. Do you know what the mechanism of action is for the most commonly used medications in the early treatment of Alzheimer's? Exactly that, inhibiting acetylcholinesterase to preserve acetylcholine in the brain. Rosemary does this naturally, with fewer adverse effects and with a series of other simultaneous benefits that no single medication offers. For the older adult who feels that memory is not what it used to be, who forgets names, who takes longer to find words, this mechanism is not irrelevant. It is exactly where the problem begins. There is a hormone that, when chronically elevated, accelerates cellular aging, destroys muscle tissue, compromises the immune system, and deteriorates memory. That hormone is cortisol, and the body of the modern older adult is constantly producing cortisol in excess because of accumulated stress, chronic inflammation, fragmented sleep, and a nervous system that never fully decelerates. The aroma of rosemary contains compounds that act on the autonomic nervous system, reducing the stress response without causing sedation. This is an important distinction. Rosemary does not relax the way a sedative relaxes, leaving the person slow and drowsy. It balances. It reduces excessive alertness without compromising energy and focus. For the older adult who lives in a state of permanent low-level tension, that feeling that the body's never completely rested, this effect has a direct impact on daily quality of life. If you already use rosemary in any form in your daily routine, write in the comments how you use it. And if you have never used it, write never used it. I want to understand how many people came to this video without knowing the real potential of this plant. Chronic low-grade inflammation is the underlying process behind most of the degenerative diseases that affect older adults. Arthritis, atherosclerosis, cognitive decline, sarcopenia, all of them have chronic inflammation as a central component. And rosemary contains one of the highest concentrations of anti-inflammatory compounds found in any everyday plant. Rosmarinic acid and carnosol present in rosemary inhibit specific inflammatory pathways, among them the NF-κB pathway, which is one of the main regulators of the inflammatory response in the body. Research shows that these compounds reduce inflammatory markers such as interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein, the same markers that doctors monitor to assess the degree of systemic inflammation in patients with chronic disease. For the older adult who lives with joint pain, morning stiffness, and a sense of an inflamed body, rosemary is not a temporary relief. It is biochemical support that acts at the root of the problem, not just the symptom. After age 60, the immune system enters a process called immunosenescence, immunological aging. The response to infections becomes slower. The ability to recognize and eliminate abnormal cells diminishes. Recovery from any infectious process takes longer. Rosemary is rich in bioactive compounds with immunomodulatory action. It does not overstimulate the immune system, which would be problematic in people with autoimmune conditions, but offers support for it to function in a more balanced and efficient way. Laboratory studies show antimicrobial activity of rosemary extracts against bacteria and fungi, and its antioxidant action protects the immune cells themselves from oxidative damage that accumulates with aging. An immune system that receives daily support ages differently from one that is ignored, and rosemary used consistently is one of the most accessible and complete forms of support available. If you are enjoying this content and want to keep receiving information like this, that goes beyond the basics. Write your city name in the comments. I want to see where this audience that takes their health seriously is watching from. One of the most underestimated risks of aging is the increased tendency toward blood clot formation. With aging, blood tends to become more viscous. Peripheral circulation decreases. The risk of deep vein thrombosis increases. And this risk is amplified by physical inactivity, chronic dehydration, and persistent systemic inflammation, factors that affect the majority of older adults. Rosemary contains compounds that act on platelet aggregation, the process by which platelets cluster together and form clots. Laboratory studies demonstrate that rosemary extracts reduce this aggregation in a dose-dependent manner. This does not mean rosemary replaces anticoagulants in people with established cardiovascular risk. That is a medical decision. But for the healthy older adult seeking daily circulatory support, this effect is one more benefit of a plant that already offers multiple simultaneous actions. With aging, intestinal motility decreases. The production of digestive enzymes drops. Intestinal transit time increases. The result is slower, more uncomfortable digestion that is less efficient at absorbing nutrients. And an intestine that functions poorly compromises the absorption of everything: proteins, vitamins, minerals, creating deficiencies that accumulate silently. Rosemary has a spasmolytic action on the intestinal musculature, meaning it helps relax excessive contractions that cause cramping and discomfort. At the same time, its bioactive compounds stimulate bile production, facilitating fat digestion. And its antimicrobial action in the digestive tract contributes to a healthier balance of the intestinal microbiome. For the older adult who deals with constant digestive discomfort, this combination of effects represents a noticeable difference in daily well-being. Rosemary can be used in multiple ways, and each form offers a slightly different profile of benefits. Rosemary tea prepared with fresh or dried sprigs in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes is the most accessible form and preserves the water-soluble compounds like rosmarinic acid well. Using the aroma through fresh sprigs placed near the work or rest area activates the cognitive benefits even without ingestion. Standardized extract in capsules offers a more precise dose for those seeking more consistent effects. What does not make sense is using rosemary only as an occasional seasoning and expecting therapeutic benefits. Consistency is what transforms a bioactive compound into a real health intervention. Daily in modest doses over weeks and months. That is how the body responds. And one important note, people who use anticoagulants, who have epilepsy, or who are pregnant should consult a healthcare professional before using rosemary in therapeutic doses. Rosemary is safe for the vast majority of healthy adults, but conscious use always begins with information.